Today, just going to go through some of the repairs today. Pretty busy day, so I have about 6 items to talk about. Had a Windows repair. I had to do a Windows repair on a computer today. I talked about yesterday a computer where maybe I didn't talk about it yesterday, but check it out. Guy had a computer, brought it in, said it was acting crazy. It was just no rhyme or reason to basically what the computer was doing. I did talk about this. When I sat down to take a break, and this is the one where I saw the USB port was smashed in, and the leads of the USB port were shorting out up against the outside of the USB port, which is metal, which was causing it to short out, and probably causing the motherboard to act very strange. So the first thing we did was bend all those pins back and then sealed that up so nobody used that USB port. We actually cut the leads to that USB port to the motherboard because the USB port couldn't be removed. It was built into the front panel, so it would never be able to be used again. So we just cut the leads just to make sure that nobody tried to use that USB port. And then we covered it up. Well, after we did the USB port, the computer seemed to be working fine, except for the fact that he had a Radeon X1650 video card in there with 2 DVI outputs, and he was running Vista. Was he running Vista? He was running Windows XP Professional with Service Pack 3, and every time we loaded the drivers for this particular video card, they would load fine. The computer would show that the card was there. Every time we rebooted the machine, the drivers would be gone, and then we would get the yellow exclamation marks in the device manager saying that the device wasn't working properly. Well, we tried everything we could. We tried different drivers, different dates of drivers. I rolled the computer back. I ran dial-a-fix and did all kinds of stuff to get these drivers to stay loaded, but they did not want to stay loaded. Ran a couple fixes online. I can't remember exactly what they did, but to make a long story short, what I did was I was at my wit's end, so I wanted to do something more drastic that I thought would fix the problem. So I did a Windows repair. Which means I put the Windows XP Professional disk in, booted to the CD, didn't press R at the first prompt there where it says if you want to repair your computer, press R to go to the recovery console. I acted as if I was reinstalling Windows, so I hit Escape or Enter, I think, at the first screen. Then the next screen, you have to hit F8 for the service agreement, and finally you get to a screen where you do have to press R again to do a Windows repair. This isn't Recovery Console, it's Windows Repair. And Windows Repair replaces the operating system onto that computer. So it just copies a new, fresh operating system onto the computer. And after I did that, the drivers did stay loaded and everything was fine. As a precaution, before I copied the new operating system onto his computer, I made a copy of everything in his My Documents folder and the desktop and his favorites just in case. I didn't know if writing a new operating system would knock all the old stuff out, so I just made a new copy of that stuff and put it in a separate spot in the root directory of the drive. The Windows repair ran through. It takes about as long as a normal Windows installation because it's basically rewriting the whole operating system. So we did that, and then the drivers ran fine after that. So Windows repair saved me on that one. On another computer, had a customer come in with the thermal error. His heatsink had busted off of the CPU, so we reattached that, fired up the computer. Now, this was a Dell, maybe 2 or 3 years old. 3 years old, I would say. It's a Optiplex GX260, I think it was, or 620. One or the other. Maybe 260. Anyway, somebody had installed Vista Ultimate on this machine. Now, this was a Pentium 4 with no hyper-threading. It seemed actually to run Vista okay, but there are no Vista drivers. See, he was using onboard graphics. There are no Vista drivers for those onboard graphics, so he was stuck at 640 by 480 resolution, and it was just a terrible experience using that computer. We looked on all over the internet for Vista drivers for this particular motherboard. None to be found. So what we do in that case when we don't know what to do next is Google that problem. So for this computer, for example, I think we typed GX260. We found out what the motherboard was and what the chipset was. And it was an Intel 845G chipset on this computer. So we Googled 845G Intel video driver Vista or something along those lines. And we Googled that, and up came a couple people, which this will always happen, guys, because there's so many people out there posting so many things. People were out there trying to do exactly what we were doing. And one person in particular had a fix. He said, go to Intel's website, download the XP drivers, extract the XP driver, and then load the driver manually by, instead of having the computer automatically look for it, do a browse at that window and point it to the folder that folder called Windows 2000 in the extracted driver file, and that's the driver that will work. Now, we downloaded the drivers from Dell that it said used for that computer. We downloaded them from other sources, and they didn't work at all. The one that did work was the one particular one from Intel, and only if you set the control panel and the device manager and browse and found that particular file in that particular folder. So it's hairy sometimes, especially, I call it the Vista phenomenon. Whether you're upgrading an XP machine to Vista or downgrading a Vista machine to XP, it's always a scavenger hunt to find drivers because they're not made for particular operating systems in some cases. And if that machine doesn't come with Vista, wasn't made for Vista, good luck finding the drivers. They're out there. Don't give up. They are out there somewhere. Somehow it will work, but you're going to have to dig through the internet and do a lot of Google searches, I think. At this point, my dad was working on that computer with the Vista drivers. I was working on the computer with the Radeon X 1650 card, and we were banging our head up against the wall for over an hour trying to solve these problems. And, and he brought up a good point. He's like, just when you think that we're going to be here forever working on these computers, the solution gets solved, and then we got two computers down right away. So basically the point he was making, and what I found is, when you think you're getting nothing done, all of a sudden you could get two dones right away, and then go into the next one and have the best day ever, when in the beginning of the day you think you're going to get nothing done because you're sitting there and you don't know the solution to some of these problems, and you don't know what to do. So if you're having one of those days, like I said before, just push through it, make it through those repairs, and then things will get easy after that, and you might have a record-breaking day just when you thought you were going to have the worst day ever. So just push through, and don't. It really didn't feel like, when we were installing those drivers and trying to figure out those problems, it really didn't feel like we were close to a solution. And then all of a sudden the solution presented itself because we just kept chugging away and looking and finding and digging. And so that's what you got to, don't get discouraged. Had a guy come in a little bit later. He called on the phone, said he had a key broken off of his laptop, the letter N like Nancy. I told him, just bring it in, I'll give him a free estimate. We might have to order him a key if the brackets are broken on the key. He brought in the key. You pop to do a repair on a key on a laptop, just pop the key off gently. It's